Hi, folks. Welcome. This is probably going to be one of those lives that's probably just going to be an hour and a half, maybe even just an hour. Well, it depends, because I invited Kristen to join me on this live. Actually, let me check if Kristen's available or not. How's everyone doing this morning? I mean, not morning. It's evening for me, but it might be morning for you. So, how are folks doing? Okay. Sarah said midnight here, 9 for Kimorova girl. 9 a.m. or 9 p.m.? Oh. Oh, I'm glad you're doing good there, Veronica. Okay. Flower with stars says, LOL, it's midnight for me. I'm going to sleep. That makes more sense. Oh, Kimorova girl, we're on the same time. Kels Bells 27 said 12 a.m. Hi Phoebe. Yeah, okay. My word. Y'all are all midnight or 9 p.m. Okay, so some people are my time or some people are Eastern Standard Time. Valencia said, "Oh, you look so pretty." Thank you. I appreciate that. I had to look a little decent for a bride. I literally was so, I don't know how I forgot that it was happening. I am so glad my sister texted me. Okay. Oh, that's right. Kimura Girls is in Arizona. Jenny's 11 uh 11 I mean p.m. over there. I wonder why TikTok is now like doing this filtering comments thing. So weird. Jenny said, "Love your dress." Thank you. Veronica said, "Yes, you do. Did you go out?" Yes, my sister was like, "Are you going to the bridal shower of like my cousin's daughter?" And I was like, "Oh my word, I am supposed to." So I had to figure it out. Kimura of a girl said, "Did you see Tiff's live?" I saw portions of it, and I was given like a document that she put for a timeline, but I haven't had a chance to read it myself. I did read. Thank you, Ronnie. I did read. I did read that she requested to make sure people didn't like tag anybody. To just keep it between fans, which I really appreciated that request that she made in the document to just make sure it's like this is again it's one of those things where it's like people are entrusting people with information that's meant to be just for fun fandom stuff, and it's always when people like miss you. Thank you, Rochelle. I mean, is it Rochelle? Is it Rachel? Actually, it's probably Rachel. Or maybe it's Rochelle. But yeah, so hopefully people are respectful of the ask there, because it really it's like and sometimes I wonder that too when people like at people and the content of the ad, it's like, why are you adding them? It's kind of awkward. Okay, so okay. Okay, Rochelle. So it was Rochelle. Okay, not Rachel. Okay, Rochelle. Okay. All right, let me see if Kristen is here. I can't tell. How do I even find these things? I'm still not good at it. So hopefully Kristen will come on. Ronnie said it's always better to not tag the talent. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like I was wondering like why. I mean, yeah, there have been times where I've had to delete comments that tagged on a situation where I was like, why are you tagging them on this one? Kirstine said, "What are the views at now? Which views? Which views?" Retta Lou said, "I sent you a timeline of all the promotional tour. I got it off X." Oh, okay, awesome. I haven't had a chance to look at that either. Oh, season 3. Kirstine, we won't know until Tuesday. But I have been. Thank you, Erin. I have been like doing a viewing at least once a day, and I'm really thankful for y'all's like um doing like, I mean, I've been sending it in stories every morning. It's been a reminder to myself to not forget, to be honest. So it's been helpful to be sending it as reminders to folks to do it, but it was really also to remind myself not to forget. So if there's a day that I don't do that for you y'all, that means I forgot. Thanks, Ava. Thanks, Ronnie. um Sarah said, just like bot comments on celebrity pages other than nice things. Yeah. Um Linda M asked, when is it appropriate to tag someone? I'll throw that out to the community. When do you think it's appropriate to tag someone? Helen asked, has anything happened? No, not that I know of. Shelly said, how much did I miss? Did you just start the live? I did just start the live. And I'm still looking for Kristen. I don't know if does anyone know how I can send somebody an invite that might not be in the space, but I want them in the space? I don't know. Shelly says, I like the reminders. Oh, good. Sarah says, I'm trying to stream almost whole season daily. Yeah. Tanya C said, my husband is finally on episode 5. He works nights, so it's hard for him to watch. Well, I love the fact that he's there now. Okay, Ronnie said, when it's not cringy content. And Kimorova girl said, it's depending on the situation. Oh, okay. So Kristen said, I'm here, but I need about 5 minutes before guesting, depending on when you want me to jump in. Kristen, when you're ready, I don't know if you can hear me, but if you can hear me, are you able to request to be invited? Or well, maybe let me see if I can I'll put an invite request if I can figure it out. I think I can figure it out. No, I cannot. My word. Can you send me an invite request? I don't know. Oh gosh. I'm still not good at this. How do I not know how to do it yet? Anyways. Okay, so Flower with Star says, if it's like a cute general edit, not like shipping or drama, let's keep that to ourselves. Yeah, I agree. Like, yeah, if it's something that's supposed to make them smile or be happy, like that makes sense. But when people are tagging them on drama, oh, I know a good example. This is not about Lucala, but this is about Hailey Bieber and Selena Gomez and Justin Bieber. There was something that got posted. It was an interview that Justin Bieber had where he said, you know, if your kids ever asked you what were your like best memories as a teenager, what would you tell them? And I don't know when this interview was, but he had said something to the effect of like, stories about my ex-girlfriend or something like that. And all these people tagged Hailey Bieber. I'm like, why would you tag her? Like, as a wife, that would be like horrible to hear. And why would you tag Justin Bieber and Selena? Like, that is like just people wanting to cause drama, you know what I mean? So I'm like, don't tag them. That's ew. That's cringy. Okay. Yeah. Okay, Jenny says they have to have their setting open. Oh. Okay, how do they have their setting open? Valencia said, I'd say tag for funny things. Nothing hurtful, harmful, or too intrusive. I agree with that. I'll try. I'm new to this. I'll try to request in a few minutes. Thanks, Kristen. Sarah says, I love rewatching the lives on YouTube to absorb the information. It's so nice to revisit it. I am so glad that you're willing to revisit it. I was talking to someone, they were like, they really love the one with Ronnie, which I do too. I have re-listened to the one with Ronnie just because I just really enjoyed it. And we probably will, like, I think we're both open to doing more together because, I mean, again, I just really love the way Ronnie thinks. And I shared this, Ronnie mentioned me in a post, and and added it to my stories, but it took forever to upload, so I'm not even sure if it's uploaded already, but I really loved it. I love the introduction. What was I going to say too? I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, the YouTube thing, because, one of the things I've told folks is in YouTube, to get to a place where you can monetize it, the lowest version is like at least 500 subscribers, which y'all have been awesome. And I have over 500 subscribers, which is great. And then the next thing is like 3,000 watch hours. So whenever people choose to like rewatch, it really does help me out to get to that place of 3,000 watches. And then I actually don't know if my own watching it counts. I don't know if it does. Like, do our own views count? Like when we're watching our thing? Because I really, enjoyed it. Linda M said, just tag compliments about their performances in season 3. Yeah, things that, would make people happy. Ronnie said, I agree with general, particularly at this stage. I agree with general, particularly at this stage. I'm not sure if I know what... because people are messy. Yeah, Aaron 70 said that was very mean. I just didn't understand why they would have tagged her. Okay. I know Pere Tartelette messaged me and gave me the other option of what to say, but you also were like, it's all good if I, so I'm gonna just say how I've always said it. Pere Tartelette. But I said, you look so pretty. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right. Approve that. It's so weird how many things are like shaded out as they're not even questionable comments. So I'm like, why is it prompting those ones as questionable comments? Sarah says, shout out to Ronnie. It was fun. Yay. Yeah, totally fun. And I'm glad to hear Ronnie share about like the engagement that she's getting through DMs and things of that nature. That really like makes me so happy. I mean, I've been really like excited because I've had different guests on. And just seeing like how folks end up like doing their own lives. I feel like there's so many of us doing lives these days, and I happen to like sometimes when I have a moment I am able to like watch and listen to some folks when I can, and I try to. Kimura girl said, you guys are very educational. Thank you. Desiree _ Michelle said, I'm so nervous to do a live. Have you never done a live before, Desiree? Valencia said, TikTok now folds comments, condenses comments that seem too similar. Okay. Desiree said, I never have. Okay, yeah. No, I mean, I will always say that every live has its own personality, obviously, because if your personality comes out in the lives that you lead. But it is really important to kind of have a really good sense of the kind of community you want to create. I was having a conversation with Ronnie, and what I was telling Ronnie was that, I do have opinions on things. I have thoughts on things. The reason that I sometimes don't disclose certain things, certain thoughts that I have is simply because it really wouldn't be beneficial. If I was just doing this as a person without thinking about a community, I could be less thoughtful, I guess. Thank you, Jenny. I could be less thoughtful in the way I proceed, but in a lot of ways, I do very much think about the community that I am trying to create. And so a lot of the choices I make is typically with the idea of protecting the community. And so I think that as a content creator, you have to sometimes decide, okay, what kind of community do I want to create, and what will it take to create that community, and what is my responsibility as a content creator? Obviously, like, I can only do so much, but I do as much as I can in protecting the community. Oh, I love how people are hyping Desiree up by making sure that Desiree know that they come to the live and that you would do great. I love that. Oh yeah, Ronnie says, don't you need 1K to go live? Yes. You need at least 1,000 followers. Yes. Um, Flowers with Stars said, I love lurking in lives and seeing everyone's thoughts and opinions. Love it. Veronica said you were wise to set your boundaries right from the start. You know, I'm really thankful I did. I did. And honestly, it wasn't actually even from the start. I learned, you know, and I think I'm learning and relearning, because even on the Thursday live that I'm going to be doing with Ronnie, Ho Ho, Caroline, and Angela, the Simstigator, like I would feel like, even though it'll still be a lot of the way I have always constructed my time or my space, I know all of them will be respectful of that. However, I won't be as strict on, I guess, on certain topics, simply because the conversations we're going to be having is how do we all determine our lines and our boundaries and all these different things. And so I will tell, okay, I'll give you, I guess, a preview. Maybe I'll just tell you mine right now, because there's going to be limited time, because there's so many, there'll be a panel of 5 people that day. So, and I'm planning to have it only be an hour and a half to 2 hours. And so that doesn't leave a lot of time for each of us to necessarily have a too long of stuff. So I'll give you an answer for mine. When I first started doing this stuff, you know, I was open to almost all the conversations, I was thinking like, yeah, I just want to hear everybody and give everybody the space. Then I started making changes simply because I started seeing the effects on the community. And so I was like, okay, this is actually getting unhealthy. But I got strict on my side simply because it was affecting me. And so sometimes it came down to me going like what is helpful for my headspace. Then I got really strict, almost too strict, right? Like, which I understood, where I could not, it became kind of like when I was so deathly afraid of, like, I don't like, oh gosh, I, like, for a really long time, when I was younger, I couldn't even look at Mickey Mouse because I just couldn't stand rats. Like, I just, it's the tail and all that stuff. So I got like really stringent. I felt like, and I didn't even want to give that analogy because, yeah, anyways, but that is how it worked for me. I just, sometimes when you're learning your boundaries, sometimes you get stricter than you need to be, because it's easier to be stricter and loosen things up than be loose and then try to tighten things up, if that makes sense. Cloudy Cloud says, love the new pic. Thanks. You're looking pretty. Thank you. Desiree said, yeah, I have thought about it. I hope I gather courage. You know what? I think that you will. When it's time, you'll know when it's time. And you know, yeah, you'll know when it's time. And when you do it, I'm sure you'll do fantastic. And you'll have an audience because you do videos, so they know your personality already to some degree through those videos. Jen said, this is a safe place with loving intentions. Yes, I mean, that's the plan. That's the hope. Oh, is Lex in this space right now? Because I see Ronnie responded to Lex. Oh, that's another person I would love to have a guest one day if Lex is open to it. Because I've also really enjoyed Lex's perspective and just from her place of expertise. Ho Ho said, Desiree's videos have me cracking up. See, I love that. Y'all are wonderful, and I hope Desiree's taking in all of this affirmation. Kimura of a girl said, I love how different everyone is and the point of view of each person. And hi, Ho Ho. I said hi, hi, ho, ho. But anyways, yeah. Um, Kristen said, I don't see the request option to guest. Oh, blasted. How do I do it? Does anybody know how I could request Kristen? I don't know. Blasted. I was hoping. I need to get better at this. Jen said Phoebe knows because I tell her I love the tea, but I have to watch how it affects me. Samesies with me, right? One of the things that I think people might misunderstand because I have become so stringent is that I don't like tea. I actually do like tea. However, I do go, is this like fun tea or is this tea gonna poison me? And some of the ones that have been coming out have been poisonous, to be honest. Cloudy Classes, I don't know if it has been discussed. Did you watch Tips Live? If so, what are your thoughts? I did see like moments of it, but not a lot of it. But I did get like the link for the documents, which I haven't had a chance to look at. Ronnie said you did it the perfect way. Oh, was it the boundaries one? Is that what you're talking about? Okay, yeah. Ronnie said people need boundaries to create a healthy space. It's true. I mean, it really genuinely is true. The Dragonfly MI said, did you watch Big Mood? No. But you know what? I think I need to just get in a schedule. I keep saying I'm going to do something. Well, actually, I never said I was going to do that. I said I needed to. But I never committed to a time frame. But I am getting better at not being always on TikTok the way I used to be. I really made some changes because it was getting like too consuming, almost to an unhealthy amount. Okay, Lex says we appreciate you in the beautiful space you created for Lucula pollen shippers. Love that, Lex. One of these days, if you're ever open to being a guest, please let me know. I know you're busy right now. Or you're doing some stuff, resting or whatnot. All the things that you have to do, pursuing your dreams. Jenny's like, oh, followed you, Desiree. I love that. Amy said, loving this healthy space so much. I appreciate that. Kristen said, it's like a pendulum, can go from one end to the other when learning and figuring it out. Absolutely. Oh, Jen said, I will have to look Lex up. Yeah, totally look up Lex because I've appreciated what Lex has offered. Lex said, I'd love to do it one day. Yeah. Oh, that would be great. I might we'll touch base. Maybe when season 4 starts or something. Well, I mean, probably sooner, hopefully sooner than that, but maybe insights of coming from an acting perspective, what does it look like to have to go to all these auditions and waiting for responses of whether you got the job or not, or all of those things. Okay. I am so sorry, Kristen. I really wanted to get you on here, but I'm so not. Oh, it's the multi guest button. Okay, said Ho Ho. Multi guest button. Oh, yes. Oh, I see you there. Oh, word. Oh, my word. I'm so excited.
Did it work?
It worked, Kristen.
It worked. I don't know how to turn my video on.
I was like, I'm so sorry. I had wanted you on here, and now I don't know. Oh, yeah, Ronnie said measured T. Yes.
It doesn't want me to connect video.
See, okay, this is. Oh, no. Does anybody know how people can turn on their videos? Because I know it's possible, but I know that Ronnie experienced issues with turning on camera.
Oh, it might be a setting.
Is it something on my side? Am I?
It might be.
Okay, let me see.
What would that's needed? I don't know.
That is so. Oh my!
I mean, I'm fine with it.
Okay, because I'm like.
But if you figure it out, then let me know.
I don't want to keep y'all from not being able to know. I mean, see each other's faces here. So I apologize. One of these days, I'm gonna have to Google how to help people out when they come on board and on the live. Ronnie's like, okay, I'm glad it was not just me. LOL. So Kristen, whatever you feel comfortable with sharing with folks about kind of a little bit of like your background and why you had like kind of some of the thoughts that you had when you saw one of those videos where I was talking about like the dopamine hits and things of that nature, and all the commentary about like having content and fed daily and then going kind of into a place where you're getting starved from information. So
yeah, of course. But you might need to remind me. I'm going to forget all of those things.
oh, sorry, it was
I
kind of
have
a long
ADHD.
ask.
No, you're good. So I'm Kristen. I've been kind of interacting and on TikTok for maybe 2 months, something like that. I'm not sure. But it's been really fun. So for my background, I am a licensed therapist in Washington. And that's where kind of like some of my my context comes from as far as when I'm thinking about things. That's like the lens that I use. And I also have ADHD. So a couple of things that I pull from there. And then when I saw the video about dopamine, it just made me think a little bit, because I think there can be a lot of different ideas about that. And so it just, from my perspective and my experience, it made me think about how that relates to ADHD, because that's a different relationship with dopamine as far as that goes. And then I think a lot of times with dopamine, there is this language around it that kind of is like this addict language, which can be kind of fun and playful depending on the context, but it can also be kind of tricky and not so nice. So with ADHD, definitely jump in whenever, if you have any questions or if I get off track. Okay.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, I think the biggest thing that I might do is try to see if people ask questions and try to make space for that too. Because I was like, oh, I just realized that I should have done that a little bit as well. I mean, we did do that with Ronnie in the tail end of the time together, but I was like, oh, I should have asked that. So, but yeah. So if people end up having questions, I'll try to look for questions specifically. So I might not be looking for just straight up messages, but when there's an actual question for Kristen, because something that she says like sparks a thought, and y'all, I'll try to keep my eyes open for that. I might still miss some stuff, but still be willing to put something in there. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so with ADHD, there is a dopamine deficit, which it could be described as having like low dopamine. And there's like mechanics involved there, but it's not super important. So it's kind of operating at like a negative when it comes to dopamine. And the purpose of dopamine, well, it has a lot of different purposes, but motivation is part of that. Mood is part of that. There's a lot of like regulating things a part of that, which is great for people that have that steady kind of like flow of that. But yeah, with ADHD, it is like a daily challenge when it comes to dopamine. And you're kind of starting at that negative, and then lots of things can either build that up or bring it lower. So it is a big factor. But it's mostly just something that ADHDers kind of automatically work towards filling that need or getting to maybe like a baseline that would be average for most people. And social media and lots of different things similar to that fill that need quite easily. Of course, it's something to monitor, but it is something that can be okay, can be healthy, depending on how it's managed, for sure. It's just one of the things. So I think that a lot of people with ADHD are drawn to social media and the kinds of things that it can offer as far as novelty, engagement, challenge, depending on like what kinds of things are coming up. And it is easy to get sucked in. So there's like a little bit more of a vulnerability there to do it a lot longer. So that's with anything that is like a really good, something that really fills that need. It's hard to switch off. So it just is what it is. It's just self-awareness. And yeah, so I think it can be okay. It can be helpful. It can get out of hand. And that's where it comes down to, I think the strategies can be similar, even if it's like more of a challenge for certain people. I think the big thing is not to make it like a moral thing or like a you're choose you know like it's a just a choice like everyone's at the same level of like playing field there. So yeah, I think it's just being careful with that language from my perspective. And some people are going to like, it's totally fine to like play around with language, and they're like common terms and things that are fun as far as shipping goes, as far as some of the things that have come up. um, but yeah, I think it's just something to be aware of, that I think, I mean, some people know that they have ADHD and some people have it and don't know that they have it because a lot of people are attracted to this sort of thing that have ADHD or are neurodivergent because it does fill such a need. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, so I've never been diagnosed with ADHD, but people in my life have, and sometimes they're like, I think you do have it. Like my nieces, I'll say, we do think you have it. And I was, and so I never thought it was, and I did until one time where I was like, maybe this explains my hyperfixation. Like when I
Maybe.
get hyperfixated, like, I mean, I think that's why I couldn't function for like 3 weeks once I got on TikTok, because it was just such a like, I wanted to do lives every single day, and I wanted to do, and it actually, I was like, I never had a problem focusing at work because like my hyperfixation was on work. But when
Ooh,
something I found more intriguing came in, it was such a battle for me to focus because I found something else more like enticing or like,
so
I don't know.
So relatable.
Yeah, so I'm not, so, yeah, valuable. So Kimora, a girl said, and feel free to share as little or as much as you want about this, because this is more so about your experience. So whatever your level of comfort is, said, what is your experience with ADHD? Because I was diagnosed as a young child. So whatever you feel comfortable sharing about your own personal.
I mean, this is one of my hyper focuses, so it's all good. I am actually a late diagnosed ADHDer, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, it's like a different experience than if someone gets diagnosed when they're younger. They typically, people might have more support or like be able to have different tools or things figured out. Might not be super easy, but I think generally it's good to get that diagnosis sooner if that's what you have. So I was late diagnosed, so I kind of figured things out the hard way most of my life. And my becoming a therapist is a second career for me. So it was a major switch at one point, because it was really interesting to me, and psychology has always been really interesting to me. So that's what makes it that's so easy and works really well for my job. But yeah, my experience with ADHD, it's been ups and downs, as far as personally. But once I understood what it was so much easier to put things in context and have more compassion for myself and not be so hard on myself for the things that are a little bit more of a challenge or I need accommodations around. And then I've been a therapist for almost 8 years. So I have a master's degree in social work with a clinical focus. So and then I'm licensed as well. And I worked mostly with children and teens. And that, like ADHD happens to be a big part of that because, it's a pretty big part of our population as far as people that have it, or are neurodivergent, which there are some similarities with some other things as far as autism and dyslexia and some other things. But yeah, so I've had lots of experience working with kids and teens and helping them with strategies and accommodations. And I think, yeah, so I have a pretty good understanding of what's helpful in general. And then I'm also working with adults now. So yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah, when you were listing about those folks that you have been able to work with and help with strategies, it made me think about Luke in his interview that I had read portions of, and he talked about his ADHD and his dyslexia. Do you have any insights of how ADHD and dyslexia, when you have both, do you have any insights on that kind of combination or not really?
Maybe. Let me think about it for a second. I know Caroline did a video, I think, at one point, because I think she was a teacher before, and she had some things. So if anyone wants to head over there at some point, that gives them more information. But ADHD is the primary thing that I help with, and then some of the kids or people I see also have, co-occurring things going on. So, but that combination, I mean, that just I kept thinking about that, knowing like just him being an actor at all seems so hard. So I just have a lot of, I don't know, a lot of admiration for just like, or just for him trying that and being so successful and, getting to where he's at, because having dyslexia is really difficult. In general, just like getting through school is difficult, I think, for kids. So I think he said he has like some different strategies. I don't know what, I mean, I'm sure they're working. But yeah, you have to work extra hard to do normal things. So just like reading lines, memorizing things, is so much harder. So much more work is involved. So it can be tiring. But when you really love something and are really passionate about it, that kind of takes over and makes it worth it, makes it doable. So I think that's what might be going on for him. And then with ADHD, I just kind of see things that look like that sometimes when I see interviews or different things going on. And I wonder, if it's more of ADHD. But it's more of a guess. I can't, nobody really knows, but a lot of things are relatable, I would say, at least from my experience too, with some of the things that come up with like the impulsive, I don't know, even just like if we see things that he has posted before. I think it was on Tiff's Live. I was hearing her talk about like all the different things that he would post, which were like fun or random or all kinds of things. But there's this like impulsive nature to it that seems a little like ADHD. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a question when you were sharing something that it prompted in me, and then it went away. So hopefully I'm gonna remember. But let me see the other questions here that we see. Ronnie says, do you think the addiction is heightened for the neurospicy when the algorithm is designed to be addictive?
What was the first part of that?
Do you think the addiction is heightened for the neurospicy when the algorithm is designed to be addictive?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's what makes it more of a, I don't know what word I want, vulnerability, like we're more prone to being drawn to it because it's already designed to be addicting. And there's this other nature, like this other piece where like drama or conflict or things that are anger related kind of get promoted more. There's more like focus on that. And, like there's could be more exposure to that as well. And there's this other component with ADHD that is related to emotions. So I think that sometimes there's more of a vulnerability to like what we expose ourselves to as well. And so boundaries become extra important around that too. Yeah.
I hear that. Sarah Nicole said, how do you approach asking to be tested for ADHD as an adult?
Oh, awesome question. You would typically go to your doctor and ask, and then you would go from there. They would probably refer you to a specialist. You could also search on, if you're in the States, you can search on Psychology Today for a therapist that does assessment and takes clients with possible ADHD or having ADHD. So yeah, there's a couple different routes. Sometimes it's tricky. It's a little harder as an adult to get a diagnosis sometimes, unless it's really obvious, because it does present differently in different people, especially like men versus women. And I mean, there's a socializing difference there. It can be more internalized for people that are like brought up as, like more as a woman or as a girl. That is just a different thing. And like the social dynamics there kind of creates more masking for girls in hiding some of those things. Sometimes they don't even know they're hiding it. It's just part of the social dynamics. And then for boys, sometimes it's just more obvious. It's more external. So yeah, But yeah, it could go, I mean, everyone's different, so it can present really differently. But if it seems really obvious and there's, like a family background of people having ADHD because it's hereditary, sometimes it's already diagnosed, sometimes not. And yeah, it's pretty much just going through your doctor. Yeah. But it's helpful. It's really helpful to know because it gives you an idea of like, okay, this is what's going on. And then, you're open to all these different things that can be helpful.
I finally remembered also what the question was, but um, eight, knowing that Luke has ADHD, and people sometimes said maybe some of the mannerisms or the things that people have thought were like things that were more romantically geared might have just been something associated with his ADHD. My question is, if he's less likely to do it in other interviews and only tends to do it in interviews with Nicola, is it because is there something sometimes, is there a calming presence that can sometimes help, or is it just because people can either, I don't know how to properly ask this question, but like, how do other people affect how people handle their ADHD? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, okay. So I think with him, interviews are just okay. I'll just say, like, for a person with ADHD, I think interviews can be tricky. There's a lot more pressure in these situations, and you have like a short amount of time to like do what you're supposed to do. And on top of that, be engaging and fun and all those things. So I think the kinds of skills that are needed to do interviewing well could be harder with ADHD. So as far as memory, as far as staying on track, and being concise. Yeah. So sometimes I see him like try to I think he thinks of what he wants to say next because he's just trying to prepare so that he can say it. I think I see like when he's focusing on Nicola, I don't think it's only that. So I don't want to say that. I'm just saying it's maybe part of what's going on. That he's like, oh, that reminds me of this. And then he's like trying to focus so that he stays on track and knows, like he can engage. So I think he's working hard in interviews to just kind of keep up and to, to stay on track. And for Nicola, she does seem to be a pretty calming presence for him, and he can count on her to definitely hold her own, but also to kind of help him out when needed. And knowing that they, are pretty close or have been, she can probably pick up on it pretty easily when he might need a little bit of help. So I think that plays into it. I think the whole romantic thing, I don't think ADHD, I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's both. Yeah. I mean, I think you can put the ADHD framework in, and then there's still some more things going on that are in addition to that. But it's just, kind of like an extra context to put things through. But yeah, I mean, they're a good combo.
Yeah. And I also do remember in the interview that I read where he brings up his ADHD and his dyslexia, one of the things was he had really hoped to inspire other folks that have ADHD and dyslexia or had a hard time at school, and just see him as an inspiration. If he could do it, that they could do it, kind of thing. And so I know, like, that is, and he talked about all his strategies in regards to how he has to prepare to be absolutely ready to to do what he does. And it is actually quite amazing in the sense of how many things he has to do to be as ready as he can be. Kimorova Girl said, do you think anxiety can stem from ADHD?
Oh, often. Often, I would say, because there is so much prep involved and trying to do your best, and just, even just to meet expectations, whether that be at school or work or just in life. It takes a lot of extra work to do that. I mean, everyone that has ADHD, experiences it a bit differently. But in general, I would say, it does take a lot of work. And so that just naturally, I think very often connects, like just creates anxiety because you have to put all this extra effort into it to do well on a test, to do well on so many things. So, I think it's kind of part of it sometimes. Someone can have anxiety and ADHD, but sometimes ADHD causes the anxiety. A lot of times, I would say. I think it's pretty common. It's a very common co-occurring disorder or thing to have.
With what are some strategies that, if you have any off the top of your head, in regards to like navigating social media as someone who might have ADHD?
Well, I think it's always a work in progress. I think bottom line, it's harder to get it right all the time. Even if you do follow certain strategies or have things in place, just because of probably the nature of ADHD, that is hard to stick to routine. It's novelty is really a fun thing. So routine is just not easy to stick to for a lot of reasons. So once you set something in place, let's say some kind of boundary with social media, that's great. And then it's possible you could fall off of that. I'm speaking from experience. And then you just notice and remind yourself and then adjust from there. So I think it's a combination of whatever works best for you. It's like trial and error. And it's not a great answer, but it is trial and error for kind of noticing like what feels good and helpful and energizing and all those good things. And when it starts to feel different, to just continue to check in with yourself. And that's where you can kind of notice what kind of boundaries might be most helpful. Because some people are going to be able to handle more time and it not negatively impact them. So it's not really if you're on for a certain amount of time and it's a little longer than other people, it doesn't necessarily or automatically make that a bad thing or too much or unhealthy. It just really depends on the person. And then just go easy on yourself. I think we're all going to make mistakes. ADHD, it just comes with that. There's going to be lots of mistakes with ADHD, and learning and relearning and trying again. And that's just the cycle. But there is, some things do stick and some things work and can, you can stick with much longer. It's just, if you can't, or there's a challenge with that because of ADHD, it's okay. You just kind of let it go and adjust from there. Yeah. So I think managing it the best you can, and knowing that it's not going to be perfect. And there are going to be times where it's not going to feel good and you're going to accidentally go one direction or the other direction and then realize it wasn't a good choice. So
Your course correction.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, as far as, I don't know, specific boundaries, that's a little tricky because I think it's just so person specific. But I think the check-ins are key, like continuing to ask yourself, how is this feeling? Does this feel like too much? Because sometimes that's not going to be an automatic thing. So it needs to be almost scheduled or almost just part of what you do as a part of like being on social media, whether that's every day or whenever you're on, to make sure to do that check.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's such a great advice in general, whether someone has ADHD or not, like just that important, and I think for myself, just having that check-in with myself, that's why my boundaries did change. It was like, oh, I thought I was okay with this. I thought I was handling this all right, but I'm realizing that some of this stuff is just not feeling healthy to me. And so sometimes you just have to, and then sometimes I things have changed and I can go back, kind of shift back.
Yeah, it's always a moving thing. It can change. Yeah. And I think for me, I relate to that as far as not realizing right away if something did bother me. I think this can be kind of part of ADHD is processing differently. Some people call it like taking longer to, just like a needing more time to process, but also it could mean deeply processing, because with ADHD, it's kind of like for everything, you're thinking of like so many different details and aspects and directions and possibility. Like it's just a constant thing. And it's not necessarily, it can look like anxiety, but it's basically a different way to process things that is just inherent with ADHD and other neurodiversity. So, yeah. Yeah.
Sarah Nicole said, do you think, and obviously this is just an opinion question, but hopefully you can answer it with some of where you feel like there might be some sort of evidence from your vantage point, because you can't definitively answer this question, I don't think. Or maybe you can. I don't know. It's an opinion, I think. Sarah Nicole says, do you think they may have become too dependent on one another during the tour regarding anxiety?
Oh, anxiety. Maybe. Let me think about, okay. Yeah, I think that can happen a little bit. So, okay, let me think about this so as a person with ADHD, the tendency to become dependent on things or people or like all kinds of things is there, especially if it's a really, really helpful thing, because so many things can be more of a challenge that once I find something that is useful, I hold on to it. So it's with people it's different, obviously, but there can be more of a tendency to like rely on someone that is offering of like, I can help you with that, or I'm here for you. So I think there could have been more of a dependency there. And that could have been kind of abrupt when promo ended, and that was that for a while. That could have been a little bit rough. I can imagine. Yeah. I don't know if that answered the question.
I think it answered it as best as really is possible. I mean, it is a, I always wonder, when is something like, when does anything become too much of anything, too dependent versus like being dependent, needing that, because sometimes it's like, I don't know, when does anything become too much or too little of anything? So I guess that's maybe where I get hung up in my head with that question. It's like,
I have thoughts.
Was it too much or was it just right? It's kind of like the Goldilocks. Was it just the right amount, or did it ever get too much? I think sometimes too, when I hear people, there is this tendency to sometimes act as if Luke does not know how to function without Nicola, and I've always felt uncomfortable with that, like framing of Luke, because do I think that Luke knows how to, like, does Luke seem to really show up more, seemingly more happy or more, I don't know what the more is in my brain, but the answer is yes, he does. It does not mean that I think that he doesn't know how to function without her. And sometimes whenever that kind of thing is said a lot, I tend to want to push back. But then at the same time, I'm like, I understand where people are coming from when they do say that. But he does know how to function without her, I guess is what I'm saying.
I agree. Yeah, I think so. I think, I mean, I think he's pretty independent. I think he does pretty well. I mean, he, himself said, I've learned these things and it's helpful for just, got me to where I'm at. And I think when he's with Nicola, there's like a little bit of relief because he doesn't have to work maybe as hard as he normally does.
I do like that, what you just said, Kristen, because I do think I do feel that, what you just said. I mean, because Ronnie says, he knows he can count on her, but he's lived with this for a long time, so he can function. I think that's what it comes down to. It's like he knows how to function. He's done this all his life. However, what you just said, it's like, could you say it again?
Yeah, that when he's with Nicola, I think that there's some level of like reassurance that she, whatever that might look like, that he doesn't have to work quite as hard as he normally has to work. And so he could be himself a little bit more, maybe more engaging, have a little more fun, because there's a little bit less focus or work put into everything else that he needs to do. Because she's there, like they're a team. So
Yeah,
I think
they're a
that's really
team.
cool. And I do have personal experience with this, as you were talking too, with um, just that original question of like relying on another person. I think it's more of an agreement. Sometimes it's stated or not stated, with like what each person's strengths are. And that's just between them as far as if it's too much or not, I think. And what's comfortable for both of them, because, there are certain things that I am not as great with, but my partner is amazing with. So, there's this give and take involved. And then I pick up, like where some of his weaknesses are, things that he's not as great with. So I think it can look different ways, but as long as it's okay with them and it feels fine, then it's great. It's fine.
Well, yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I mean, um, yeah, I'm just thinking a lot about how do you um how do you talk with folks? Do you ever, well, okay, how do I phrase this so that it's under, like I'm phrasing this properly? Have you ever found, because I sometimes wonder if people do this with Luke a little bit, is when is the proper acknowledgement of his ADHD? Like when is it like proper acknowledgement, because it does affect uh the way he functions and the way he lives his life. And when is it like almost people start to become like almost paternalistic? Is that the right word?
Mm.
Towards him, or like almost making him sound as if he's incapable. And maybe it's in line with my original statement of whenever I hear people talk about Luke as if he can't function without Nicola. It's kind of more, it's kind of along that line, but slightly different, because it's not about just Nicola. It's just almost like, um, as if he doesn't know how to make decisions, or he's, I don't know how to phrase it, but so you can't answer a question that I can't properly communicate. But do you understand a little bit what I'm saying? Maybe not, maybe
I
so.
think so. And you can tell me if I'm off base.
Okay.
But I think what I'm hearing is that you're wondering like how much. So with ADHD, okay, actually let me start with like, so ADHD is like, it's an operating system. It's like, it's your brain, but it's like everything is connected, right? So it's a little bit of a different operating system compared to what is more common or neurotypical. So it's just a different operating system. And our world is created for neurotypicals. So there's inherently going to be some things that are, like people with ADHD have to do differently or figure out or get accommodations for. It doesn't, it's like, being able to have access to different things or do things a little bit differently in order to get to the same spot. And that's just, that's okay. I mean, and ADHD can be a disability. It is what it is. So I don't know how you want to look at that, but I don't know, because I don't know, like how much, his ADHD is impacting his daily functioning. I have no idea. So that makes it a little tricky too. But for someone that has like more knowledge of ADHD or personal experience, I think it's really easy to like try to relate, or, to what that might be like and what kinds of things might be helpful for him. Not saying, I mean, everyone needs help. I think that's the hard thing, is like everyone thinks, they're an individual, but we all rely on each other in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, I don't know. I'm very independent as far as that goes. But I still have a lot of things that I rely on in order to, be my best self, be successful, do everything I need to do. I couldn't do that like completely in a silo. So, yeah, I think he's really skilled in like what he does. And I think, yeah, I think sometimes he gets support maybe from, I'm sure he gets support from family. But I don't, the paternal or yeah, that kind of instinct of like trying to protect, I think comes from knowing what people might be going through, having a lot of insight into like what kids go through and teens go through and adults go through that have ADHD or potentially could be going through. And that possibility might lead to like being a little bit more like, oh, that could be rough, and a little bit more compassion, maybe. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Am I hitting any of the
I mean,
things you were?
yeah. And
Okay.
actually, Felicia wrote in the chat,
Mm-hmm.
infantilizing versus giving grace for his symptoms.
Mm,
And I do, that was the word. It wasn't paternalistic or whatever, but I mean, maybe on the side of the other person, but it is that infantilize. And so, which is actually a great statement, because that's another flip side, though, of where I remember doing a video or a post around how, when we request people to be kind to Luke, sometimes people are like, oh, you're treating him like a child. And I was like, well, I mean, and maybe that's a mischaracterization, because I'm like, are they saying that we, usually I hear it in posts where I'm asking people to be kind, I guess, to Luke.
mm,
And people come back with a sentiment of like, he's an adult, he should own his, like, his, he should be treated like an adult. And a part of me is like, I don't think that's the same thing.
mm-hmm.
To say like, be kind does
It's
not
not.
mean you're
I don't think it is either.
infantilizing a person, or treating them like a child. And so I don't know if sometimes there is a miscommunication that's happening, where they're hearing like, be kind to Luke, meaning treating him like a child. I don't know where the connection is, but I tend to hear that kind of sentiment in posts that request kindness towards Luke.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm just trying to
Yeah.
wrap my mind around that a little bit. I mean, I know that's not necessarily in everything that we've been talking about, but kind of is. Maybe, I don't know, but I just didn't know if you had thoughts
Yeah.
around
I have thoughts on lots
why
of things. I
folks
don't know if
may be hearing be kind to Luke as something that's saying that we want to treat him like a child. Like,
Mm.
what is, how is that equation getting mixed in together?
Yeah, I think it's people's lived experience and their own personal beliefs on things, and maybe how they are in relation to other people. Like if they see someone doing something that they don't approve of, or they think is not what they would do, there's some people. I don't know. I think I'm going to back out of that. Let me back out of that. I think, yeah, being kind is very different. I think being kind just means basic respect. I think it just means he is accountable to himself. He's responsible for his actions. You're responsible for your actions. Like you're each responsible for your side of the street kind of thing. And like, we may perceive things certain ways. We take meaning different ways, and we're putting it through our own frame, our own lens. And that's just how we're going to perceive things. But I think things can get a little gray or a little blurry because of the fandom, because of this, like this feeling that people naturally are going to get because the way that they feel so accessible to us, celebrities or people that are famous, that we have some kind of say or something, or that we need to, like they need to be accountable for this or that. And that doesn't, just even for people that are close to us, it's a little tricky. Because clearly, like Luke's not asking for us for our opinion. So, but yeah, he's, like he is accountable to himself. Like he's responsible for his own like success or mistakes, if they're actually mistakes, or, like, cause we'll never know everything. Mm-hmm. We're not him. We're not the people close to him. And yeah, I think kindness is just assuming the best in people, and people are doing the best that they can and being respectful. And everyone deserves that, I don't know. I don't think there's anything to hold them accountable for. That's personal opinion, but yeah. There it is.
I think I probably hold that same opinion. Not maybe I do. Ronnie said, all they hear is them being reprimanded. It's not about Luke, it's about them. And you know what? That's a good point. That's a good point, Ronnie, because when I do my post and I say something, I will say this, genuinely 100% don't have anybody in mind. It's usually an observation of something or just a pattern I've seen in general. And so part of me feels like if somebody feels pricked by it, it's because they see themselves in it. But I'm not the one calling them out. They're calling themselves out. And I think that's just kind of where it's at. I don't know. Am I wrong? Maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, that makes sense to me. I think, I bounce around to like different things and different accounts and different lives. And there's a lot of great stuff across the board and great people. And I think it's just, different flavors. And so, yeah, I don't even know where I might hear, like it's all kind of a mix as far as that goes, like where I might get a sense of something or see a pattern or see something start to come up more. So I don't think it's specific at all for me. Because it can't be, I don't remember. But I think it's just, I feel pretty strongly about certain things. And that's just, yeah. When I noticed that it was something that's a little different than that, I think this kind of ties back to social media. And just getting curious, like if we are interacting with someone or someone is questioning something, to just get curious and be like, well, I wonder why, either just like internally or just with them, and be like, oh, like, tell me more. You do a really great job with that. And that usually helps with keep it, like just, you care, you just want to know, and you just want to explore that more. And that can be really helpful in just keeping things neutral and helpful and positive and fun.
Yeah, I think curiosity is such an important piece in any engagement because whenever somebody has said something and let's say it touches on an insecurity or something that I haven't fully reconciled within myself, it's more of a battle to be able to stay curious, because you almost get in a defensive stand because you're almost self-protecting. But when you're not self-protecting, when you can just sit and listen to a person share a perspective that you're like, oh, I never thought of it that way. Like I even like just going, oh, okay. Like I really appreciated you commenting in the post and saying, some of the concerns around, like, we do have to think about like how it could potentially land, the whole talking about the dopamine hits and talking about like using the starvation analogy or whatever, right? And that's an inquisitive thing. Like, oh, please tell. Yeah, I did want to know more. I did want to understand, because I didn't want to inadvertently cause harm by not thinking through how it might affect different people in the community, right? Because I only know what I know until somebody makes me more aware of something, a perspective that I'm missing. And so I do think it's important to have that curiosity when you're whenever you're talking to people, because I think the more insecure we feel about something, maybe not insecure, but the more protective we feel about something, or also the more insecure we feel about something, the less we become curious, because we almost don't want to hear something that will challenge us.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Even if so to be open or notice, because sometimes we might not be able to have that conversation, and that's okay too. It'd be more of like some like less conversation and backing away, and that's okay. It doesn't mean, anyone's getting attacked or having a problem. It just isn't going to be the most productive conversation. That's okay. But anytime I do, I sometimes say a lot of things, in comments. And I have a lot of opinions, and I think it kind of goes along with being neurodivergent in a way, of like this sense of like justice, and like there are certain things either from personal experience or just like all the people that I've worked with and like their struggles and their journeys and just the holding all of that. Of course, yeah, I think everyone has their certain things that they're more protective of or more sensitive with, or, you know, to just hold a little bit closely. And I think my interest there is just, I care. Like I care about, you know, the community, all these little communities, and like I want it to continue to be enjoyable for everyone. And I think it's a good conversation just to like define things sometimes, a lot of times, what we're saying with certain words, because I think a lot of times it can be fine. Like I think some of those terms are, you know, within context and within everyone's okay with that kind of context, that it's great, it's fun. Like the shipping terms, like I love it. So I think it can be great. It's just something to be aware of. I think it's just good, because I think
yeah, I
a
think
lot
it's
of
great.
people that can relate.
Yeah, no, I think it is great to just be aware, right? Like, I always, one of the things I was saying to somebody, they were sharing, like, how do I phrase this? When we get new information, we go through a process of like trying to figure out like what we were going to do with that new information, right? Like I haven't had a chance to view the document. I did view it a little bit, the document from TIFF, that has the timeline, right? So but I did get a little bit of a preview that like one of the things that I got super excited about in one of the previous lives about like, oh, maybe he wasn't in a relationship with Jade still during the intimacy scenes. Maybe that's not necessarily true. And like if the timeline provided by TIFF is accurate, and then I'm like, oh, that's going to be interesting for me in my brain, because I got excited when I got to reverse, because I couldn't let my brain think anything during those scenes, because I'm like, well, he was with somebody, so I can't even entertain that. But when it was brought up that it wasn't, she was no longer in the picture that way, then I was like, oh, I can. But now I'm like, I have to go back, because I can't, like my brain won't allow it, kind of thing. But I was talking to somebody, and one of the things that I tend to say a lot, if you've been around me long enough, is that every emotion is valid. It's just the information that informs that emotion that may be incorrect. Because sometimes, like people, when they're getting upset about something, it's because there's a particular narrative they're telling themselves about the situation. That if any of the information that's driving that narrative turns out to not be true, they would actually change their mind about, like their emotions would change. Because that's the story. It drives like the anger or the sadness or the hopelessness or the excitement or whatever the emotion might be. And so it's going to be interesting for me looking at so Lucky Ducky Ooh said, Tiff said they were most likely not together after November, filmed Mirror on December 2. Yeah, but I think it was more the carriage scene. Lucky Ducky Ooh. Though, I'm sorry, I just had a moment. And the Modiste scene, did that happen also after, or what? Does anybody know when that scene? Because if the Modiste and the mirror scene came after the breakup, I'm like, I know they said it's lighting. But the only time he used his right hand was the carriage scene. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. The only time he used his right hand was the carriage scene. And I'm just gonna stick to that. Okay, Mirror and Modiste is after breakup. Okay, I'm sorry, Kristen. I went off the rails.
No, I'm here for it.
I literally had a point, but I got lost in the sauce after I realize, oh my word, I'm still sticking with I still can be there. I can still be there, Kristen. Okay, I'm back to being excited and happy because I'm like, carriage scene? Okay, that was right-handed Luke. I mean, right-handed Colin. But Mirror and Modiste was left-handed Luke.
Interesting.
I'm sticking to that. Anyways, we got 14 minutes left. Kristen, I'm so sorry I derailed us. Is there is there anything else that you want to make sure, like, folks that have joined us, and also, just before you even answer this question, I do usually put these things on YouTube for folks to view afterwards. Would you be okay with me uploading this one?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, perfect. Because sometimes people might not, and I just, though I think
it's good to ask.
That sometimes I'm like, is it fair to be asking people right in the live? Like, what are the people going to say?
Fine.
No, that's awkward. Yeah. Maybe I really should wait until after.
They could message you later or something, or right after, but I won't. I'm good.
That sounds good. But any final words or anything on your side here?
No, I think this is a really good conversation, and I like the types of like topics and people I think it's been really interesting and helpful. And I think after hearing a little bit about how fandoms can go, I feel like maybe we can change, like at least part of it can be a little different, or maybe, we can create some change. I don't know. That's just me. I always think I can change everything, but, or, like with people like you and with, like the different, I don't know, people that are in this community, it just seems like there's a lot of hope and a lot of fun, and that it could continue to be that way. And that's my hope. And so conversations like this, I think really can be helpful. So I'm glad that you wanted to have this conversation.
Yeah, I'm so thankful that you had put that in the comment section. It just got me thinking. And we've engaged a lot, especially, I tell folks all the time, I'm a person that needs to like feel like that I trust people. Like it takes me a little bit. And so, but because Ronnie and you, have both been like, have engaged a lot with me, especially as subscribers, like, it's been more comfortable. Like, oh, okay, I've talked a lot with Ronnie. I've talked a lot with Kristen, in different ways. Like, I feel more comfortable with that. Because I actually had somebody who had messaged me requesting like a follow of an account, and I was like, I don't feel comfortable yet. Like, I don't know this person. Like, I have to, like, I don't know. I have to have a certain level of comfort. Unless it's straight up like a lot of, oh no, I still have to, I still have to trust people. I don't know. Maybe that's a confession. I mean, I don't know.
It sounds pretty normal to me. Yeah, I think that's good. Just, I think that's healthy. You want to be able to, feel people out a little bit to get a sense of them, that, yeah, you want to be careful because,
yeah, well, and I think what I have felt, like, the reason I felt comfortable inviting Ronnie and inviting you is because it has been more consistent conversations, and I've seen like the way your minds work, and that when I get a sense of how a person's mind works, it makes me feel more comfortable with like, hey, we're gonna get on a live, and I'm gonna trust like the things that will be coming out of like all of our mouths are going to be beneficial to the community. And I also know that the community is gonna like also hold me accountable, because there's times where like I get off, like I get lost in the sauce, and then the chat was like, can we move on? like we need to move on from this topic. It's like I'm so thankful when people do that, because I'm like, oh, you're right. I have been too like hyper focused, and I need to move on. So yeah. Anyways, I really appreciate you. Any final words from the folks that joined us tonight? Is there any final questions you might have for either Kristen or myself before we sign off for the night? If not, I'll maybe wait for a few seconds because I don't know how long people need to type, you know. Oh, a lot of good job. Cloudy Cloud says good job, ladies. Folks, thank you. Lynn29 said thank you, Kristen. And Ronnie says just thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Well, I think people are ready to get some sleep. Some people are like probably at like 1 o'clock over there, almost 1:30 their time. So I really appreciate it. What time frame are you again, Chris? Oh, wait, no, you're in the same state as me, right?
I am. I'm in Washington. Yeah.
That's right. Because when you said Washington, I'm like, wait a minute. That's me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all to me.
Yeah. I grew up in Oregon and then I've been in Washington ever since.
Nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, did you? Okay. Yes. I think I remember now where you said. Ronnie's like, yeah, girl, it's 12:30. Well, thank y'all for just joining us. I will try to work on making sure to upload this live on YouTube. If any folks want to rewatch it. And have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Night. Thanks. Bye.